we were supposed to do. As you know, we have 4 techniques. Wet on wet, wet on dry, dry on dry, and dry on wet. I'm gonna make 4 column for each of them to get the concept better. These are basics, you know, when you know these things, these basics that I'm telling you, actually you will have whole things about watercolor. You don't need more than that. The only thing that you need is practice these techniques in your paintings. Okay, so let me just, the first one could be wet on dry. The second one wet on, let's say dry on wet. It's better to put them together. On wet. Dry. Dry on wet, and wet on wet, and dry on dry. Okay, the first one is brush. The second one is paper. The same thing happened all around. And let me talk about paper first. I mean, paper should be in good quality. Then you will get the most of it. So to me, actually my priority, I mean, the first choice is arches, which I like very much. And the second one is Sanders and Waterford. I like them, my second best. And the rest, I mean, I don't know, Strathmore or Conson or different kind of paper, they are good, but not perfect, okay? They are good for practice, but not perfect. So, okay, let's do this. Okay, the first one is brush and second is paper. So it means I need to use wet brush on dry paper. So wet brush means I need to put my brush in water first, and then I have to have plenty of water in my brush. So, and the color that I'm using here should be very watery. It means like, let me just show you. If I want to use the same color, it's gonna be like this, I mean, very watery. So there are 2 things here happening. One of them is the brush, which is loaded with a lot of water. So I'm writing here because I want you to know it perfectly, because this is the, how to say, this is the pillar of whole thing about watercolor. Brush with a lot of water in it. And then also we have pigment, which is very, how to say, very less consistency. Let's say watery paint, very watery paint. So the consistency is like tea, which is very light, and we can say 90% water, 10% pigment. Okay, and the paper, we need to keep it dry. It means I don't wet it. So I'm gonna apply color in the 1/3 of it. And what am I doing here is just clean my brush, which is like I have to clean it perfectly. And again, because I need still water brush, so I load it with water. But this time I just go from the opposite direction, from the bottom and towards the edge of the color, grab the color, pull it down towards the end of the paper. Let me just use more color here. Okay. And then if you just wash it out like this, it means you pull the color towards the bottom. And if you keep it angled, it means gravity helps you with it. Let me just do it here again. Okay. Watery color here. And immediately I wash my brush, load it with more water from opposite sides, wash the edge of it, and then grab it down. It means you don't have any harsh line in between. But if you just make it like this and then let it dry, you never can wash the hard edge here. I'm going to show you later. Let it dry a little bit. Okay, the next one is wet, dry on wet. It means I need to wet the paper. I need to wet the paper with a clean water. I just wet the paper. When I'm doing this big things, for example, like this, I just use a spray bottle. So it helps me to wet the bigger paper. Or I can use even bigger brushes like this one or maybe this one. Sometimes I see people, artists, they just wash the whole paper under the faucet, you know, they use the tap to wet the paper. It's another way. I mean, you can just wet the paper. Okay, now paper is wet. So the brush needs to be dry. We have here dry brush, wet paper. Okay, we have wet paper and I'm gonna dry my brush, blot the brush, remove all water, and the same consistency of tea. You know, the paint should be very watery. So I'm gonna use the same consistency and I just put it here, 1/3, and let the water do its job. I mean, the goal is don't have any harsh line around. As you see here, I did it and then it dries. Now, if I try to, almost dry, actually, if I try to fade the harsh line, it's very hard to do it because you see again a line here. You cannot make it smooth and soft like these two techniques that we used, okay? And when you direct it towards the bottom, I mean, tilt the paper like this, you will get almost the same result, you know? They are slightly different, but the same thing. Now, but remember, still we have a consistency of tea, which means the color is, the pigment is 10% and water is 90%. Okay, wet and wet means we need to have wet paper and also wet paint, the same color and the same consistency. And you see, if I just put the color here, it makes very random shape. I mean, you don't have any control to to make it like the certain place or put it in some certain place. Wherever water is, it goes in that direction. And it's very, how to say, uncontrolled, make uncontrolled shapes. And also I have a lot of paper towel next to me, so I use them more often. Okay. Again, let's try wet and wet here. Okay, if we have wet paper here, a lot of water on paper, and add color to it. I mean, it goes in different ways, like this. So mostly we use this technique, wet and wet, for the first wash, which is most of the time the background. The background needs to be wet and wet. If I can show you here, you can see there are lots of soft edges around the background. So you can get this effect by doing wet and wet. The last one is dry and dry. It means your brush needs to be dry. So I dry my brush, and also the paper is dry, but the consistency is still tea. I grab the color and with the side of the brush, put it somewhere on a paper. As you see, there are hard, harsh lines in it, and then you can see the texture of the paper. This paper doesn't have any texture on it. Let me just use the paper that has a lot of texture, which is arches. I have arches over here. Yes, for example, here, this is arches. Let me just try dry and dry in this one. Okay, consistency is still tea, but the brush is has a lot of, the brush is dry and the pigment, the paper is dry. So dry and dry. If I just make more water. Okay, if I just use the side of the brush, it means I'm gonna make the harsh, hard strokes here. Sometimes we need it. If I can find something to show you, it would be awesome. Let's see. You know, this technique I use dry and dry rarely, because it's a different kind of, creates different kind of texture. And because I do wet and wet most of the time, so I believe I don't have any kind of this kind of strokes in my paintings because I do wet and wet. But I will find something maybe, and then I'm gonna show you if I have this kind of strokes in my painting, which I don't believe I have them. Okay. So the whole thing that I did here was actually these techniques with the consistency of tea of pigments. But imagine how you can make the consistency of colors stronger and stronger. Why do we need them? You know, imagine this kind of painting. I mean, it's wet on wet. You are doing wet on wet, and then you do the background. So you have your background. Now you need to add, for example, I don't know, a flower here. But because the paper is wet, you need to dry your brush. And this time you need to use the color with more consistency. What does it mean? More consistency means now the consistency of tea changes into coffee, which means a little bit, I mean more stronger. So coffee here. Okay, so it means you have more pigment, and also it helps you to have your flower, which is maybe like this. Then you will get the shape of it, you know, you will get the shape of something, you know. Still, it's kind of blurry and vague, which is the goal. You know, we don't want to have lines around it. I mean, what I did here for flowers, for example, here, you cannot see the hard line over here, but still you can see flowers. It happened when you do it like here. Look at the shape of the flower. This is a flower, but still you cannot see very hard line around it. Now I think I need more color to my flower. Still the paper is wet. So I'm gonna use more consistency, which is the consistency of water.
There's a couple of questions for you.
Okay.
One of them is, I guess, a pen, because they can't read the print underneath, you know, where you say water, paint, tea, coffee. Some people are having a hard time reading it.
Oh, okay.
And someone else wants to know, do you ever stretch the paper before painting? Because they've never had any luck doing that.
Mm-hmm. Yes, actually, not for this reason, because it's just few information about the basics of and techniques, using techniques actually. But when I'm doing painting, for sure, yeah, I stretch my paper with gummed tape, but also you can stretch it with masking tape. Yeah, you have to do it. I'm not saying you have to do it, because there are lots of different techniques that you can use, avoiding to stretch the paper. One of them is using blocked paper, which I have here. For example, arches that I use, they are blocked. They are like this. It means, let's see, where. It's not blocked. So the blocked ones have let me show this way. They are blocked. I mean, they have glued together like this. And then when you are done with your painting, you need to just with a palette knife, just remove, the paper. So it keeps it very tight, lets you add the water, a lot of water to your paper. So it doesn't buckle in this way. Another way is you have to just wet the paper in both sides, the back of the paper and the front of the paper. When you just wet whole things and put it on glassy thing, plexiglass or any kind of glass, or maybe plastic, thick plastics work perfectly for this kind of technique. So if you just put it on a glass like this, so it means there is no buckling. So you can avoid to stretch the paper. But for me, actually I do it with gum tape, which is keeps it very tight, and don't let it to buckle. And I'm going to repeat these things, okay? No worries about that. But because I need to do the next layer when it's still wet. The next, there are some ideas that says, okay, after coffee, you need the consistency of cream, which is a little bit, more stronger, and then butter. But to me, actually, there is no difference between butter and cream, because I believe I stick to rules of three in many things. I will elaborate on this later. Rules of three, actually, I do it for myself. I invent this rule for myself. Try to use three things. One of them is, okay, if you have the consistency of tea, okay, then coffee and then butter would be enough, or tea, cream, and butter, not more than that. Okay, let's add consistency of butter to it, which means if I do it right now, I'm gonna get I have more pigment, and then I'm gonna get the more specific touches of the color. But still, if you look at it, there is no hard line around it. It's completely different from this kind of shape. You can see line all around, outline of the whatever you are doing here. And then, but in this one, you cannot see very hard lines around. Okay, let's try it again, and then with more. This is the texture paper, so I'm gonna use this one for the consistency. Okay, let me just a second. Make them bigger and more visible. First, I need to find the. Okay. Okay. So the consistency of tea, because I want to have them in a one big shape, whole things that we've learned so far, I want them to have in one picture, okay? So I'm gonna wet the paper, and I will write it down for you to have in one paint. Let's just wet the paper that I told you. Okay, I'm gonna wet the paper like this with spray bottle. You can wet it with brush. So I have wet paper. So it means I can use wet brush as well, because I want to have very wet and wet background. So I'm gonna use ultramarine this time, and I try to make background. And I told you, when I'm doing this, I'm using lines and dots, you know. So if I just want to add another color to it, which could be alizarin crimson, or for me, follow crimson. I have follow crimson, which I like better. Okay, again, the consistency is tea again, because this is the first layer. Wherever I want to add this, I do the same thing. And then you can see when I add it here, for example, this part of the paper is dry. So immediately I'm gonna wash it out, like wet and dry. So hide the edges. You know, I don't need to have that hard edge around. Look at this. I'm not saying whole lines should be washed out, because sometimes you can have them. Sometimes they make your painting more beautiful. Or sometimes I don't like this shape in my painting, so it's easy to just wash them out. And then I told you, if you keep your paper angled, it means gravity helps you to wash the colors better towards the bottom of the page. Or you can just remove them. Now, sometimes I need harsh lines that we studied before. So I need to dry my brush because my paper is wet. If you feel it's not wet enough, okay, wet it again. I mean, there's no limitation of wetting paper. Okay, now it's totally wet. So I dry my brush because this time I want to add more features, more things to my painting. So I need to dry my brush first because I want it to stick in a place. And I'm gonna add a flower somewhere. And also this time I'm gonna use more consistency, which is consistency of coffee maybe. And I'm gonna shape my flowers over here. Let's just, for example, making a rose. Doesn't matter, the shape of I'm making here doesn't matter at all. The way that I'm doing it, it's more important. So more consistency. But still the paper is wet. So it means I don't get the sharp edges all around. And again, dots, lines, whole body of the brush will help you to get the better shape. You know, I told you, I don't have a lot of dry and dry because my technique is wet and wet. But if I want to show you how you can have the dry brushes, I blot the brush and the brush is dry now. Grab the pigment, the color that I want to have, make the texture, and I'm gonna use it here. And you can see immediately here, we don't have water on paper here, so I'm gonna get I'm getting the hard and textured line over here. But in this part, because the paper was wet, I don't have any hard or texture on my paper, okay? So again, lines, dots, you know, at the same time, I'm trying to fix the composition. You know, I'm trying to think of the whole things all around. Now I need, if I want to work now and complete my whole thing, I mean flower here, I need the consistency of water because the paper is still wet and you saw that I wet it again. So more consistency. Okay, I'm gonna use angled brush. Dry my brush because the paper is wet. And the same color, or I can change it to darker value, but I can use the same color with more consistency, which could be like cream or water. And again, go back to shape my flower. More consistency, I need more consistency, more pigment, okay. So again, you can see they are how to say, spreading out because the paper is wet. But this time the consistency is heavier, so it's going to make the shapes better. And I'm trying to shape my flowers. My flower, actually it's one flower. So like using the tip of the brush, the whole body of the brush like this. And sometimes I squint my eyes to see the shape of it better. You know, we will talk about flower tomorrow. But I want to mention this fact that you don't need to have a complete whole shape of your flower. Because sometimes we shape our flowers with background, I mean, negative painting, which we will supposed to talk about it tomorrow. So I told you about spreading the shapes out, so you can wash it out if you don't like it, or even like wash it with clean water, or even you can spray them out. I mean, wash them out with water. When it's still wet, you can do anything you want to do, you know, so be careful about. That's why, I mean, this is the fact that makes watercolor harder, because you have to do whole things in a limited time, the period of time that the paper is wet, totally wet. So you have to be speeded up. I'm not saying you cannot fix it later, but it's very hard. It's very hard to fix watercolor. It's not like oil or soft pastel that you can go back at darkest dark, lightest light. You know, you can add highlights in oil, watercolor, I mean, pastel, or even acrylic. But in watercolor, no, you cannot do that. Okay, I let it dry. So, and then I can wet it again, or I can add, I mean, using wet and dry technique, because then the paper, it's going to be dry. So I need to wet my brush and then apply more color, negatively, positively, or whatever. We can shape our flowers later perfectly. Okay, I want to show you another technique, which is, I can do it right now. Actually, I can do it later as well, but it's better to do it right now. I will show two options. The lifting up technique. Okay, lifting up technique is, you want to have a light petal of the flower here. Okay, it's time because it's still wet. So you can just lift it up like this. We cannot have the whiteness of the paper that we can make it at the first place, but still we can remove some color. This part is a little bit dry, but still you can see if I just press my paper towel harder, I can get a little bit light. You can lift up the color with brush as well. Okay, you need to wash your brush. It should be very clean and a little water in it, not too much, a little water, and then just go in a place that you want to lift up the thing. You can see I just lifted up. That's why I don't use masking fluid too much. But I'm going to show you how you can use masking fluid. But most of the time, if I just want to have some part, I mean, lighter, I do it with, we can call it thirsty brush. It means the brush is totally clean with a little bit of water, and then go for those highlights and let it dry. I will show you more about lifting up technique. So We covered lifting up technique, and also another thing that we can, let me just make it, and let me tell you, if you have a darker, the darkest background, you can get the better shape of the salt effects on it. Let me just use a darker color here. And we used in both things, the lighter color we have here, and let me just apply a darker color here. Negatively, I'm gonna, but still it's wet, you know. I'm gonna shape my flower a little bit. We will talk about the shaping negatively the flower later, I mean tomorrow. And I'm adding a little green to it, lines, dots. Okay, lighter color and darker color. Let's just use salt to see what happens. And you know, there are lots of different kind of salts. Some of them are like table salt. They are very tiny little greens, but we have stone salt, I believe. They are hard and bigger. So, you know, using salt, you can put direction on it or randomly apply it. But I love to have direction. So I'm gonna make direction to it. Or randomly, you can just spatter salt on places. And then you need to let it dry to see the shape of the salt. But let me just put it aside a little bit. And then I'm gonna show you the salt effect that I used. Okay. Okay, yeah, here. I use salt on this one, and you can see after it dries, you will get this effects on your painting. You can see salt all over it, but you have to let it dry by itself. You cannot use hair dryer to dry it. Oh, thank you. So yeah, that's salt effect. And the other one that I want to talk about, we will talk about whole painting here. I'm trying to find the lifting up. I don't have lifting up a lot because I told you I use wet and wet. Taking most of the time. Oh, I have another thing. Okay, look at this. And I use salt here. And I told you when it's kind of a light color, the effect of salt could be a little bit slightly different. But I use salt in this one too, this piece too. And also in this one, I mean, this is background. Actually, these techniques are in my YouTube channel. You can see all three of them. You know, I did these three backgrounds, and as well, I guess three more I have in my YouTube channel. You can watch the videos, and you can see and also the effect of salt could be different when you use it when the paper is totally wet or a little bit wet. The moisture in your paper helps have huge you know, impact on the result. You know, you could have different kind of background. It depends on you where you want to use wet. And you know, it's very, let me just change the direction of it. You know, you can use this technique. I mean, it could be a painting. How? By adding negative painting to it. You use smaller brush. For example, this one, let me just make it more clear. Okay, you have small little light areas here. So you can go with a wet brush. So it's wet and dry because this one is dry, the paper is dry. So I'm gonna use wet brush. And then I just can shape the shapes that I can see inside my background. So these are random shapes. You know why? Because we got it from salt and we couldn't have any, how to say, any kind of, it was out of our control. So you get the shapes, but if you just exaggerate the shape of them by adding negatively dark value to it, and then with clean water, just wash them out to get the softer lines all around, then you will get the, I mean, abstract, beautiful painting by itself. It could be sands on the beach or whatever you call it, and wash the color out. So you can get the shapes, random shapes. In the smaller areas, you can go inside it and then wash some of them out. Just touch them, I mean, with clean water. It would be enough. Then you will get the beautiful shapes of the, I don't know, sands or whatever you call it. So I'm saying that if you know the texture, study textures and techniques, these are really the fundamental of watercolor, especially watercolor. Because, you know, in watercolor, you can just create random shapes out of, I don't know, out of just spattering colors, just wet the paper and spatter color to it. You know, you cannot get this kind of random shapes out of oil, acrylic, or whatever. Yeah, so it helps to improve our composition, our painting way better. Still, I'm waiting. Oh, yeah, I guess we have something here. Yeah, look at this. Still wet, a little bit wet, but you can see the salt effect on it. Okay, let me just apply a little dark color over here to show you how you can get the different texture by adding just water, not more than that. Okay, let me just try it here. I may ruin my flower because, you know, the flower that you have, it should be, I mean, some part of it, that's right side or left side, or in some part, it should be dark in background, defined, but the lines, I mean, negative paintings. In one side, it should be nothing. I mean, melt to the background like this, that perfect shape that I have here. I love it because you cannot see the end of your, you cannot say okay, this is flower, and then these are leaves. You cannot say that because there's no border between those. So that's why I like watercolor. I love it to be like this, but because I want to show you how you can use a spray bottle to create texture, I have to ruin my rose to show you how you can get it. Okay, again, the same color. I use the same color. But negatively, I'm gonna shape my flower, the petal here, and then spread it out. Use a spray bottle to spread it out. Because again, we don't want to have hard lines all around. Sometimes it's okay to have few of them. I don't touch this part, but in general, if people look at your painting, they need to see the soft washes all around. Okay, we have a dark value here. Let me just add a little darker green to it. For this technique that we are going to use the spray bottle, we need to let it to dry a little bit. Not dry, but a little bit dry. So let's put it aside. I can use hair dryer, but it's better to let it dry naturally, because then you will get the better result. I mean, but sometimes we are in a hurry, we need to make it faster. So it's okay to use hair dryer. So once, okay, let me just show you something, another thing, because I want to cover the whole things, I mean, whole texture that you can, oh, the green is Hooker's green. This green that I used here. The blue is ultramarine, but the green is Hooker's green. Okay, so another thing that you can use here, the technique is using a sharp something. I mean, it could be even this lead of the brush, or the end of the brush. Some brushes has very sharp end like this, and some of them has something like this. I'm sure you noticed that they are like palette knife. Let's use this one. Actually, they are the results are the same. What you use for it, even pencil, the tip of the pencil helps. Any kind of, even fingernail work perfectly too. Let me just, but it needs to be a little, I mean, more drier. Let's see if I can use it here. You can see I used my fingernail here, and I got the light shapes, I mean, lines here. The same thing that I can get the same thing. If I want to get the same thing, I can use the end of this. I mean, it's going to be smaller, but as you see, the effect is totally different. When it's kind of dry, it's make it lighter. But if still wet, if you just scratch it, you will get the, let me see, not here. Okay, here, let's try it here. When it's totally dry, I mean, totally wet, when you just touch it like this, you will get the even fingernail, you will get darker line as you see here. But it's when it's a little dry, I mean drier. Oh, it's still wet. Let's see if, no, it's still wet. But you saw I use it here. It's damp, a little damp. And when you use this for fingernail, it means you are getting lightest line. I mean, the same thing, but two effects. In very wet place, you will get the dark lines. In damp places, you will get the very light white, even white lines. Let it dry a little bit. Let me make it faster. No, I don't think so. We need hair dryer. Just a second, let me just use my hair dryer very quick. I'll be back in 1 minute. I hope it's, oh, it's totally dry. Oh, dry. Okay, but here it's still damp. You could see I got the same thing that I used here. It's kind of damp now, but in the same place, you will get the light lines. And then when it's totally dry, I mean wet, you will get the dark lines and in the same place. So that's why you have to be careful about amount of water that you use, and also be careful. I mean, timing is very important in this case. Okay. Oh, we were supposed to use spray bottle here. Let me use it if it works or not. Okay, now I'm using a different kind of spray bottle. It makes more bigger droplets. It's not like these that use powdery droplets. It's kind of bigger droplets. And then you need to step away a little bit and then spray droplets to your painting. But it's because it's dry, it doesn't work perfectly here. But I'm going to use it in another part. Let me just make this part darker. A little bit. Okay, when I have this kind of color here, and it's a little dry, not too wet, like this part, it's not this watery. So if you just step away and then spatter spray water, big droplets on it, you will get those little things over there. Is it clear enough? If you look at it, you can see those dots or circles over there that we created by just patterning using a spray bottle with bigger droplets over here. So, and I saw people that they use alcohol, but I don't like the way that it goes. So, oh, okay. And different things, you know, once I decided to use, you can be creative, use different things. I mean, once I remember I started with calligraphy when I was 18 something, very young. And I tried to use bleach instead of ink. And it was very beautiful. It creates very beautiful texture on my paper. But honestly, the smell was not very good. So I just tried once, but I'm telling you, it was very beautiful effect back then. And also, I remember I used feathers instead of brushes once to create some texture on my painting for fun, just for fun. I don't use it. I didn't use it later. But I'm saying you, I mean, I'm telling you that you can use different kind of things. Try it. Once I used expired credit card to create a texture, and amazingly, it won the prize last year, 2 years ago in Valley Watercolor Society. I used credit card on this rocks here. It won the 3rd place, this painting. You know, different things. I mean, they create texture. If you want to make these stones one by one, it takes a lot of time. But I just create them by credit card, just grab the colors. And then with negative painting that I told you here, where is it? That I used here with negative painting, I just define my rocks, add a little darker value under each of them. So I got the perfect shape of stones and the feeling of having stones here. Yeah, let me see. Okay, we can have break for 10, 15 minutes now, or we can start talking about different things, masking fluid, masking tape.
Let's take a little break.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. I agree. Okay, maybe 10, 15 minutes. And please do the things that we did here, of course, if you like. And then if you have any problem, you can ask me right now or after a break, okay? And, you know, whatever you are doing during today, you can email me. We can elaborate, talk about it, go over it, talk about it more tomorrow, maybe for 15 minutes in the beginning of the meeting.
Are we able to email you? Because I'm working Thursday and Friday, so I won't be able to ask questions on
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, see you after uh, 10, 15 minutes. Okay, let's back to work. Sorry, guys, I couldn't read the text that you sent in chat box. I cannot do it at the same time, but I saw a few of them during break. And is there, the same problem? Still, we have the same problem? Let me know. And I saw Kathy said she's doing ink. I can tell you the same thing, whole things that I told you apply for ink as well. Actually, we do. On Saturdays, we have class on Zoom, and every other week we do ink, actually sketching and then ink, and then the same thing with watercolor. What I showed you at the beginning, actually we did this last Saturday with ink. I use the black watercolor, but same, we can do ink too. And then we are supposed to do it, in color next Saturday, hopefully, or soon enough. And, and also, we did this with ink, and then we just did the color version of it like this. It's a good practice. We study value. Actually, value study first, do value study first, and then colored one. And we did the same thing for this. Okay, I want to show you this one. This is wet and wet, totally wet and wet. And you can see there is no harsh line around, except the few things that we add later. I add later. The same thing happened. Okay. Another thing that it's very helpful to know is using tools. Is it clear enough, guys? Oh, and I believe it's consistencies with A, right? I made a mistake. My spelling is awful. I think it's A right here. Okay. So another thing that you can use perfectly, and it helps you a lot, is using X-Acto knife that I have here, especially for ripples in distance. I'm going to use it here. You can see when you just keep it, exactly the straight like this, not angle. Actually, use it in spare paper first, then you will get the how it works for you. But remember, it should be straight. I mean, like this, you know, and it brings out the texture of the paper, you know. And if you just look at it, I mean, it means like shiny ripples in the stems. You know, you can use it in this kind of, if you want to have this kind of texture. Or even kind of wavy things all over the rocks. I have some here. Okay, look at this. I mean, I used the texture here, the X-Acto knife over the rocks to get those sparkly droplets of the water over here. So you can use all these kind of techniques in your painting to create more texture. Okay, we covered X-Acto knife and also about lifting up technique again. Clean water, and if you go over the place that you want to have light thing, but remember, you need to go one direction and dab the paper towel over it. Don't go twice over one thing. Again, I wash my brush and I add maybe something right here. And you can see I got the lines. You can use it for grass or even the boats that you have. They have the white ropes towards it. I don't have, maybe this rusty old chip. Okay, I want to have the maybe light ropes in it. So again, with clean water, you just go, let's see, over it. And dab it. If you don't get it, you can do it again in the same place. Oh, maybe we cannot have it here. Something's showing up. And you can see, get the light rope perfectly. If you look at it, you can see the light rope that you created here. So you can use it everywhere. You want to have some light here. Okay, do it. The same thing, but directions are very important. You have to follow the way that the thing that you're working on it goes. I mean, if it's kind of round, you need to make it round. I mean, the shape of the line should be round. The same thing happened here. So you got the light, not white as white as the paper is, but still it's a kind of white thing. So, okay, let's use masking tape, masking fluid, and yep. Okay, I'm going to divide this paper into, half, because I want to show you how you can, we need to let it dry when we want to use plastic wrap. So let's divide it into half. It shouldn't be perfect, but we try. We try to have the perfect. Okay, I'm going to use plastic wrap on this side, right side, and then the other masking tape in left side. So we need whatever we want to do. I just apply color here. It's not a composition or painting or something, but I just add color to it, like random different color. The color that we used before, ultramarine, leftover that we have here, wet the paper. And lines, dots all over. Try to make a composition, circulate the colors. We'll talk about it later, tomorrow and the next day. Okay, when I'm done with applying the colors or whatever I'm doing here, the paper needs to be wet, and then using plastic wrap. And if you don't have plastic wrap, which I believe all of you have it, doesn't matter. You can use regular, plastic sack or something. Doesn't matter that much. Okay, and then you, oh, sorry, what happened? Okay, we have it. We need to change the direction. That's good. Sorry about that. Somebody called me, so doing everything. Okay, and a plastic wrap. You just crumble the plastic and apply it over the background. And if you want to have more wrinkles over your painting, you can fix it like this. Make it smaller and smaller, and if it's a good word, scramble it more, Okay, let it dry. For next one, you can use masking tape. As you know, there are lots of different kind of masking tape. The size, I'm talking about the size. Smaller ones, bigger ones. Even I've heard that there is some big sheet of it. You can just buy them and then make the shapes out of them. I tried once in Iran for my calligraphy, let's say painting. It was awesome. It was very good. So if you have this kind of masking tape, it doesn't mean you have to use them, I mean, in perfect shape. You can just tear them apart to get the different shapes. But in this case, I'm trying to make the, oh my plastic wrap. Okay, you know, you just make shapes of it, any kind of shapes that you like, and put it randomly, or maybe you have something in your mind. I mean, maybe you want to make, how to say, jungle full of trees, or whatever you want to make. I mean, the certain composition. I'm going to use masking fluid in the same place. For using masking fluid, actually this is masking fluid, you need to use a brush, but remember, if you want to not ruin your brush, it's better to cover it with washing liquid. Let me just show you. Washing dish liquid or soap. Just put it like this, and then try to cover it from the metal part, you know, just cover the hair, but start from the metal part. Because, you know, the masking fluid, if it goes inside the hair, it means you're ruining your brush. And then use masking fluid in a place that you want to apply it. For example, if I want to have this, let's put it somewhere here, like the sun is over here, for example. And also, remember, you can make masking fluid, I mean, thinner by adding water to it. I'm going to show you how we can make it watery. And then if you just make it like this, I mean, watery consistency of tea, let's say, and you can spatter all over your painting, not all over your painting, but the place that you want to apply them. For example, I want to make some of them bigger. But you have to let them dry. Otherwise, you couldn't get the perfect shape of whatever you want to have, okay? It's just a random shape, random composition over here. And I try to keep them, keep variety on those dots that I'm applying, you know, they shouldn't be the same thing. Okay, let it dry. And then wash the brush immediately. We don't want to ruin our brush. So, when it's drying, I put it aside. I want to show you this painting that I did with plastic wrap for background. I use plastic wrap for background. And actually I did one with masking tape, but that one, I cannot find it right now. And yeah, this one. I use masking fluid on this part, you know, and a little bit over here. And again, if you have a darker, using darker value, when you remove masking fluid, you will get the, more brighter, whiter things like I did here. And it lets you to do your painting, very, calmly because you are not worried about keeping those white areas around your composition. You can just apply color all over, and then when it dries completely, you can remove the masking fluid or masking tape. Erase it and work on those parts, areas too. Let me see.
Did you use masking tape on that one?
In this one, I use plastic wrap, what I did here.
Okay.
And I used masking fluid on this one, here. And a little bit over here. And I use stencil actually here too. But I'm gonna explain using stencil later, okay? But this part I use masking fluid. And I just apply this dark color very easily. And then when it dried, I just remove the masking fluid. So I got the whiteness of the paper. I could make it with lifting up technique, but it makes it a little bit harder because I have to go round and a certain shape. So it makes it harder. Yeah, let's see if it's dry. No, let me use hair dryer to dry it faster. This part of watercolor is very hard for you. Have to be have patience to let it dry by itself. But most of the time I cannot do it. Always I'm in a hurry. Okay, just make sure that you have very tight masking tape here. You can go over it by paper towel to make sure that there's no gap between the tape and the paper. Okay, and then the same thing, I'm gonna apply the different colors to it. Wet the paper. And I'm not worried about anything, I'm not supposed to keep white in places that I want to have whiteness of the paper, because I cover whole things with the places that I want to have white with masking fluid and masking tape. So I just apply the colors that I like. Ultramarine again. Phthalo crimson. And darker value, it could be hooker's green, sap green, any kind of green. But, you know, I add them randomly. I'm not go over the color that I applied before. I let some colors that I used shine through the color that I'm using now. Yeah, different colors. I'm gonna use burnt sienna in some places. Again, dots, lines, the whole body of the brush. Different color for this one, maybe violet. Over here. And orange. You know, again, I mean, I use rule of 3 most of the time. I don't add this much color to my palette, but you know, I want you to see the effect of masking stuff better. So I add different color to it. But in watercolor, you have to keep your palette limited. I mean, if you use 3 colors, not less than 3 colors, I'm not saying not more than 3 colors, but try to use the colors that they belong to one family. You know, if you want to use orange, okay, you can use orange and cadmium red and maybe alizarin crimson because they are from red family. Okay, you can have a variety on one family, but try to keep at least 3 different colors. But now I'm using different colors to show you how you can get the better result of take advantage of using masking fluid, masking tapes all over. Yeah, okay, let me do this. Add few dark things at the bottom. It's not a perfect composition, but good enough to show the outcome of masking fluid. Okay, let me dry it with hair dryer because it takes time to let it dry by itself. Taking off the plastic wrap, and you can see the texture that it creates. Beautiful. Again, you can just make shapes by negative painting out of this beautiful texture here. What I want to do is, I told you there are different brushes. One of them is fan brush. So you can add, use it for different reasons. One of them is adding grass to your landscape painting like this, you know. Oh, darker color. And of course, we try to wash them. The water to get the watery texture. And another thing that you can use, eye brush for is creating the texture of the wood, you know. Let me just show you here. If you just go towards the direction of the wood, like this, then you will get the texture of the wood. And you, of course, you can add the darkest value to it. And also, if you just wave it a little bit, you can make those, I can call them knots in the wood texture, and brush them out, or the trunk of the trees, like this. It creates a beautiful texture for the woods. Of course, you can use different colors as well. Okay, let me dry it again a little bit. Okay, it's time to remove the tape. You have to be careful because sometimes it sticks. Oh, like this. See what happened here? It removes the part of paper as well, which is not good at all. But it's okay. There is no other choice. We have to continue. I mean, actually, you can do one thing. Before you want to use the masking tape on your painting, it's better to just put it, stick it on some fabric. It could be over your dress too. Like this. You just put it here, and then it makes it less sticky. So it helps not to damage the paper, which it did have here. And for masking fluid, you can use your finger to remove it, or you can use razor But for me, using finger is better, feels better. And you saw that I applied color without any without no, I mean, any, how to say, I wasn't worried about ruining my white spots because I already covered them by masking fluid, masking tape. You know, I rarely use masking fluid, masking tape. Very rare, maybe once in a year. Because I like it to be natural. I mean, keep the lights and whiteness of the paper, I mean, natural. Okay. But we cannot leave them like this. We have to shape them because they looks like collage. And we don't like to have them like this. Okay, for trees, I use most of the time Persian blue or cerulean blue for the first layer. But again, you can wet the paper, whole paper like with spray bottle that I'm using here, or you can partially wet the place that you want to work on that specific part, which could be maybe this tree. Okay, I just wet this one by adding water. And you can see I washed the color from background into the tree. So I use cerulean blue or Persian blue are perfect. This is my personal choice. And then go upwards. When it's still wet, I dry my brush because I want the next color stick to one part of it. Burnt sienna. Because we have sun over here, it's better to have it in left side. So let's do it again. A little blue over here. We have light source from right. Okay, I'm gonna more consistency of coffee, and also my brush is not wet. Okay, again, and wash it towards the right side. The darkest color could be indigo, sepia, any kind of dark color. I can apply it here. The third color. Again, the same thing happened for next one. And remember, if you want to have any kind of texture, any kind of shapes like those round shape of the tree, you can add them right now because the tree is wet. So randomly, avoid to have them like the same thing, you know, just make different shapes. Again, the same thing happened on this one and this one. Actually, we are not supposed to do the trees today, because today is about texture, techniques, and basics, but it's unfinished. I try to finish it again. burnt sienna. The darker value could be sepia that I'm applying, or it could be even Payne's gray or any kind of dark color. Again, at the bottom, okay. These are for trees, and also want to add few round strokes to the tree to get the feeling of it. And of course, you can later, you can add a few branches to it. And it's better to use that mop liner that I told you, this one, because it creates very tiny little lines, which is very good for branches. So can add few branches to it. Darker value. You can add more if you like, you know, there is no specific rule for that. The sky is limit. And, you know, my tree, this one is very big in this side. I don't like it. So I can cover it with some dark value, you know. I did this because I want you to know how you can fix your painting in ways that the places that you don't like them. It's not very easy, but you can do it. Okay, about the flowers. The first color that I'm using here is Phthalo Crimson, but I'm not covering whole things. I let some part of it remain white. And another color, it could be the thicker consistency of the same color, or it could be another dark color from the same family, which I used alizarin crimson here in some part of it. I mean, I consider the source of the light, so I go with the opposite direction. And I'm not doing the same thing all over around. I keep some of them like in different shapes. And I'm gonna add few stems. Again, using dark green. Because I have a lot of grass filling over it. So it's okay to have few things that shows we have stems, or you can add leaves to it. You know, it's totally up to you. You know, you can add details, more details to it, or you can keep it simple. You know, you don't need too much, but it's totally up to you. Again, for the sun, I can wet it whole thing at the first layer, which is mine is also yellow medium. I just applied in this part, wash it out. And next layer could be yellow ochre. again, blend it with that one. And the last color could be orange. A little bit is enough. You know, you don't need more than that. It's too round and too big. It's fine, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. Okay. Now you can see, oh, we used masking fluid over here and masking tape, also masking tape, and the texture of the plastic wrap. Okay. Any comments or questions?
I think that's just beautiful.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it really is.
Oh,
I didn't
good.
imagine that when you started.
Oh, yeah. It and end up with this.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You know, watercolor is something that you cannot predict what happened at the end. Even you, as an artist, you decide to do something, but at the end, you will get maybe different things that you don't expect it. You know, it's spontaneously happening. I mean, in watercolor, especially in watercolor. We cannot do it with other mediums. Okay, let's have a quick, brief summary about what we learned here. And I want to ask you if you like to talk about what you learned, you have learned from this techniques. I appreciate that.
I've learned quite a bit about watercolor just watching you and listening to techniques. When I said I did ink and watercolor, I meant that I would draw or sketch something out and then color in with watercolor. But when I look at how you're doing your work and how freeing it is, I thought, okay, I now know how to use the masking tape I bought, the masking fluid that I bought because I haven't used it because I didn't know how. And I love the technique with the plastic wrap. And I think that's really neat. I mean, like just looking at that on the right, I can see a butterfly and flowers and things.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I really, really like that. I'm going to try these things because I've been playing with my watercolors. I'm not a watercolorist. And so I've learned quite a bit from just this one class. So I think it's pretty neat. I was trying it as you were doing your things, and I'm not even going to show it, but it's pretty cool. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Oh, good. Thank you. And you can send me your tries, whatever you are going to do today. You can send it to me and we will talk about it tomorrow. This is what we do in our class. I mean, Saturday's class. I show the things that my students do and send it to me, and we'll talk it over here. And I just tell them how you can fix it by using markers to say, okay, you need to add few things over here, or you can fade this part away, something like this. We can discuss on them tomorrow. I'll be more than happy to see your art pieces.
Thank you.
You know, that almost looks like cotton down there.
Oh.
But I come from the South and we grow a lot of cotton. So it does. It kind of looks like little cotton bowls.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
It's kind of cool.
Yeah, actually, you can change because they, as you saw, I mean, it was like a white empty space. You can change it to any kind of flowers that you like. You can make them roses, whatever, daisies, whatever you like it. You know, it's up to you. I mean, because we didn't decide to do any specific thing. We just wanted to study using masking fluid, masking tapes, this kind of stuff. So if you decide before you using masking fluid, you can just shape your flowers perfectly. But try to keep them, I mean, different sizes, different shapes to get better results. Yep.
Where do we find your class that you have on Saturdays?
Oh, actually, you need to email me and I add you to the group. I can add you to the group. I mean, we have WhatsApp group and we use it as a, I mean, exchange the information, our paintings, and also the link of the Zoom. Each Saturday we have Zoom meeting that I send the link to the group, and then you can join the class. And the class starts 10:30 every Saturdays to 12:30, 2 hours.
Yeah. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah. So is there any comments or questions? Or
I always learn something. I've been with you in a class before, you know, with a long time actually, but repeating the basics and just going on it, you learn something every time. I always learn something by repeating and practicing, always.
Yeah, I agree. Even for me, Tana, it's the same. You know, each time I start recalling the basics, I myself learned something new. Can you believe it? And, you know, we start with pastel, as I remember, but I'm saying that the same concept. If I can show you one thing. Oh, I have one of my pastel painting here. If I want to tell you, you can see the same thing. I don't know, maybe I do the same. I have the same approach to both or any kind of medium that I have. But I'm telling you, you can see the foggy and almost nothing background here. It's kind of wet and wet, you know, even in pastel, you need to fade them all over. You don't, you shouldn't have any hard, edgy line. And then when you are getting closer to the foreground, you make them very specific and more clear. And, you know, those dots that I applied here, we did it with masking fluid here, but here, because the medium, you can add them later. With pastel, you can just dab the things. But, you know, the same concept, same thing. If you just, I'm saying, of course, watercolor is the hardest one. But if you know one of them, it means it helps you a lot for the others. I mean, for the other mediums like pastel. I remember when I attended the class, I started with watercolor, and then I went to have few sessions on pastel. And my teacher at that time told me, oh, at first session, you did perfect painting. How you can do that? And I said, I do watercolor. He said, that's why, because I'm telling you, watercolor. If you know watercolor, you can do the rest very easy, you know. You don't have any problem on those because this is the hardest one, watercolor. But to me, it's more enjoyable. You know, I love watercolor more than anything.
Hi there, this is Sherry Markovich. My camera doesn't work, so you don't get to see me. But
oh, yeah. Okay.
I've heard about the saran wrap before, but I've never used it. And it just blows me away with all the different shapes. Let's say you were going to work on the piece that you have in front of us. would you enhance some of the shapes with the same color but more intensity to look more like negative painting?
Sure. Yeah, you can use negative painting for this one. You know, if you like, for example, if I want to shape this with negative painting, did I understand your point of view perfect? Or you talked about something else? I thought you asked me to do negative painting on this one, right?
Yes, that the shapes could be even more enhanced if
okay.
you wanted to do the background first to get it the way you want it, and then lay the flowers, let's say, on top.
Okay, you know what? Actually, I did this shape randomly, but you can direct it to direction that you want. For example, when I did it here, I knew that I want to apply plastic wrap for background. So I didn't use it in my flowers, as you see here. I didn't use it here. I just did background, and then I had different size of plastic wrap at that time. And then I put it in a place when it was still wet. And when I did the background, I started doing the flowers. I knew before I want to have flowers and leaves over here. So I just did it in background. That's why I'm telling this, because I want you to know, if you want to have any specific shapes, for example, the butterfly that Kathy said, I guess, yeah, you can shape your plastic wrap like butterfly. Okay, I want to have butterfly here and then flowers here. You can make decision to shape your plastic wrap. I'm not saying you get the perfect shape of it, but almost there, you know. We didn't this for that reason, but I can tell you, if I want to have the butterfly here, okay, I can, and flowers, yes, I can make the, add few negative things with wet and dry. Actually, I have the dry paper. So I need to wet the brush. If I just fade it out, it means I'm getting the shape of the flower right here. Of course, they are kind of abstract form of it.
So back to the lilies, am I understanding you that you didn't do the whole background? You went around the lilies, either in pencil, you figured out what that space was going to be, and little pieces of saran. You worked really hard on that. My goodness.
Actually, it was Laura, but not that hard. It looks. It wasn't that hard. Maybe later we can have demo and doing this kind of things, you know.
Yeah, that's why I thought you used masking tape on that, because of the flower.
No,
white is, or rather masking fluid, because it looked like you around where the flowers, because I thought, how did she get the background? I thought the background was the entire back page and then you painted over, but now I can see that that wasn't the case.
Oh, yeah, you know, I didn't use masking fluid more often, you know, I don't like it, but I tell you, maybe later we can have demo, but let me just tell you very quick things about it, because I knew I want to have, I had my composition, okay, I had my flowers like here, petals, for example, like here. So I knew the place of it. Even I just wet the paper, like this whole paper, but I went, let's use the dark background, almost the same background that I used for that. It's a kind of dark green. I had wet paper, but you know, I just go for the background like this. I leave my flowers and leaves like this, you know, like this. Even in some part, I intentionally, add few color of the leaves as well, or even in that part that they wanted to be very fade out. They are not very clear like these in front, I mean, foreground. They are in background as well. They melted to the background. Okay, so I had this kind of things, you know, add few color of it. I wasn't worried about bleeding because it's a part of watercolor, especially in background. Of course, I leave some part of it white, you know, I don't cover whole things. And then I add few different colors to the background. I wanted to have a variety in colors in background. And of course, I just wash some part of it. Then because I had a few pieces of plastic wrap, I didn't have a whole one thing. And I just apply them in a place that I want to have the texture, you know, like this. And I shape it a little bit, let it dry. So if you just let it dry, you will get the texture on those parts that you apply plastic wrap. And of course, later you can shape your flowers when it's totally, because we do watercolor step by step. I mean, the first layer, the second layer, and the third layer. And then you can go back for adding few leaves to it. I mean, petals to the flower, shape them, and at the third layer, which is darker here. You know, later you can work in this places better because there is no.
I love it already. So would you lay in all your lilies, or you do a little section at a time? Would you pencil in, oh, I'm going to have a lily here and there, and then go for the background?
Yes. I just first have my composition.
Okay.
And then go for the rest. I mean, I'm not sure if I just remove it, you will get no, not yet. It should be dry to get the perfect shape of the.
Now, can you use the saran that's already been used with the paint get on the wrong spot? Would you take a piece of saran and ball it up, and that's what you're using?
Yes, you know, you can later fix it. I'm not easily, but there are lots of ways you can fix your painting. You know, let me just show you one thing that may help you. Actually, I did this bird and I didn't like the background. The background wasn't very, I mean, the color that I liked. And I used acrylic to cover that color that I didn't like and use watercolor again to make another, how to say, brush strokes over it. So it ended up like this, which I like it very much. Actually, I thought maybe nobody knows I fix my mistakes here. But to me, actually, I like this. And I thought maybe I have to do the same technique, use the same technique again. You know? I mean, actually put it like applied to my art pieces.
So that's a watercolor, acrylic, and is there pastel in there or no?
No, not pastel, just acrylic. And
acrylic.
Most of it is watercolor. Most of it is watercolor. But the color that I applied here, I didn't like it. I just covered with acrylic and then applied watercolor again. And it, you know, I'm saying that there are lots of ways to fix the problems. Don't give up easily, just try to fix it. Maybe at the end you cannot fix it, you have to throw it away. I did a lot of ugly paintings that I threw them away. But you know, don't give up easily, just try to fix it. And sometimes you can get the perfect thing out of it, you know? Yeah, if I don't like to have, actually, I guess we have here. I'm not sure in this one. No, not this one, but I did another one. I had few overlap of the texture, but doesn't matter that much, you know, it's a part of painting. Unfortunately, I cannot find it now, but I try to find it for tomorrow. I'm gonna show it to you. The texture went over the flowers or the places that I didn't want it to go. But at the end, it was good because it was part of the painting and it wasn't that much, we could call it mistake. It was something, you know, because it's the nature of watercolor. Something happened to your painting that intentionally, and you didn't have any plan to do it. I remember when I started watercolor, a very, old lady was my teacher, and she was very nice. And she told us a story about one of her painting. She said, I did a landscape and I put it in exhibition and everybody were impressed about it, was impressed about it. And one of my friends asked me in front of the people, asked me, what did you do for this rainy, cloudy weather at the background? She said, okay, I'm going to tell you later. And I told her, I didn't do anything about it. It happened. I didn't have any plan to do it, but it happened, and I'm happy it happened. And that, the thing. And she tried to tell us that something happened that makes you more than happy, because you get beautiful things that you, if you decided to do it, maybe you were not that much successful at it, you know. Sometimes you can call it happy accidents. Happen and it's make it beautiful. Still wet. You know, I talk about this one later because I wanted to try to get those texture perfectly. Okay, anything to add to this techniques? Okay, so let's talk about another technique, which is, actually, I don't use it. I did several times, but it's not my style and preference, you know. Let me just find it to show you how you can do it. Okay, I'm gonna explain it here, but let me just show you the texture of the wood that we create with that fan brush. Okay, I'm gonna talk about the technique that I told you. You can use this technique in two ways. Let me just divide the paper in two parts again. Before we move to this part, let me talk about another thing that can create the same, almost the same technique, like plastic wrap. You know, you can use sponge or paper towel. There are different kinds of sponge. Some of them are very, textury. They have a lot of holes in it. They are very good and creates beautiful, beautiful texture. But you can also, I told you, you can be creative, use anything, different things and see what happens. Okay, one thing that I can tell you is, okay, you can use sponge. Just wet the sponge and put it in color. You can see I just dab it in the color that I have on my palette, and then just add things like this. You know, you can add even darker color to it, but dabbing some part of it to dark color and apply it in let's say the same area to get the different shapes, you know. Then even the third color could be darker. But remember, always you need to have the shapes out of it. See, I'm not covering whole things that I applied before. And you know, when you just draw some sharp lines, to it, you will get the beautiful tree. You know, with a very small, fast touches, you will get the thing like this. Or even you can use, for example, the texture. You have the texture here. Let's wet it enough. Again, different colors. You can shape the paper towel, crumble it like this, then you will get the texture over here. So if you just put it here and you have color over it, so you can add the color somewhere else, you know. Let me just The same thing that we did with sponge, you can just do it with this, except you will get the shape. Let me just use another darker color. So you will get the shapes, you know, they could be flowers. Then with negative painting, you can make the flowers like stems, leaves to them, or exaggerate some part of it, like background, using different color for background to shape them. I'm not covering whole things because I need some part of it to be lighter. You have a bunch of flower here by adding paper towel to it. You know, you didn't too much for having those roses over there. So there are lots of techniques that you can use to have beautiful things. The other thing that I can tell you, oh, let's see, do we have texture here? Oh, almost. Yeah. Oh, good enough. Okay, now when I'm done with it, I just go for, let me just fade this part out. Okay, I go back for the leaves and flowers to make them for foreground. Actually, for background, it's okay to leave it like this because we need to have some background. It means you are adding perspective and depth into your painting. So we need to have some kind of this blurry blended shapes. And then when you are going forward for foreground, you need to make them more specific, like what I'm doing here. So it's okay to have this thing like this. This is wet and wet. But for foreground, you need to make it like more in detail. Two things, again, you can wet the paper, I mean, like this, and work on it with using different consistency, or you can use wet and dry. In this case, I love to wet the paper again because I love to have the unpredictable things all over. So I'm gonna use the center of the leaf. It could be somewhere right here, maybe. Blot my brush. I don't need a lot of water because the paper is wet, and I go for the shape of the leaf. So one thing that I have to do is this positive shape. I mean, working on a petal, I mean, the leaf. And the other thing is negative. Negative means you need to make negative shape of it. You know, you have to bring it out by adding dark value underneath. of course, I have to fade it out. And again, the shape of the leaf happen here. And the shape of the flower, we will talk about the flowers later, okay? But now you know how we can fix the shape of the flower. And again, positive shape, negative shapes will help to have the and also it's kind of blend to the background, which is good. And the stem comes right down. Of course, you can go back for the rest and just keep it this way closer to see what we did here. And again, you know, now because it's wet in this negative part, okay, and it consider as a background, then you can apply plastic wrap again. You know, you can apply plastic wrap over here again. Then you will get the shapes of the plastic wrap, the texture of it, and also you can have the shape of your flowers and leaves. Okay, negatively, I'm gonna shape this flower. I try to keep the shape of it, and then I just fade it out. You know, when I'm washing this color, because it's lighter than background, it means it doesn't ruin the texture that I got from plastic wrap. I can make it smaller, but remember, we don't need to have line around the flowers. Yeah, and gradually you can shape your flowers or whatever you're working on. So you got the texture by sponge and thing. You can use sponge on for creating rocks as well. And of course, I'm gonna add few positive leaves to my tree to get those dots that we talked about, dots and lines all over. Okay, so let's do the next technique that I told you we can use it in two ways, okay? Let's see how much time we have. Okay, good enough. The first thing is, now I don't want to have a specific composition. I don't want to have, you know, I don't have anything in my mind. It's not time to have certain things, because we will work on flowers tomorrow and we will work on landscape the next day. But now imagine we have some random flowers without any, don't focus on composition because they have to be something random things. Okay, I have, you could have buildings or flowers. In this case, let's have buildings or flowers. Maybe flowers, it's better. Just do flowers with, what do you call this? I mean, not Sharpie, but ink pen. Yeah, I believe ink pen. You can do it with Sharpie too, but very tiny, small tip. Okay, I just consider a flower, but remember, in this particular technique, you shouldn't remove your hand from the paper, okay? You need to just connect lines in different directions. Okay, I'm gonna have the shape of flowers, like the center of the flower, the petals, the petals here, and I don't remove my pen out of the paper. Okay, so I just continue to have some leaves and stems, another smaller, same flower over here, more stems. You know, I'm thinking about the composition, but I don't remove my pen out of my paper. So again, leaves here, whatever you want to add. Okay, maybe some leaves here. That's all, and grass maybe at the bottom. Some grasses over here. Done, okay? Now I apply color to it. I can again wet the paper. This is my choice. You know, I always like to wet the paper, but you can avoid it. You know, you can just think, okay, I don't want it to be like wet. I want to do wet on dry. So in that case, you have to have a lot of water on your brush. Okay. So I didn't expect it to, soluble pen. Because this technique needs to be done with having lines around. But doesn't matter. I told you, another happy accident here. So, okay, my flowers, very simple. I want to make the centers yellow. You can see they melt to each other. And of course, I can spatter a little yellow to my composition and fade some of them out or keep them like this. And the petals, I like them to be red, so I'm going to use red. We'll talk about how we can make petals tomorrow, okay? For now, just know how we can apply it. And I'm not worried about bleeding because bleeding is part of wet and wet painting. I can remove it with thirsty brush, apply yellow again, or I can leave it the way it is because it's wet and wet. I shouldn't be worried about it. Again, red. And leaves, I use different green for them. Light green. Dark green. Wherever I have the leaves, leaf shape, I add the green color to it. And also we had some stems. I don't go over the lines that I created here. I just use them as direction for my painting. It's better to fade them out a little bit. And so you can see those lines perfectly. You know, some drawing are like this. There are, they have lines all around. You can have background as well. Just wash the colors out to get the background. Try to have the good composition for background as well. We are not talking about background and flowers yet, but we are talking about the technique. So you can see we have very dark black lines all around. This is a technique that some artists use it for landscapes and flowers. You can do it in another way. You can just have your painting, the same technique, but in different shape. Okay, in different way, let's say. Again, I try to do the same thing that I did here. Okay, I have put the paper, I have my flowers, one here, the center of the other right here, and petals. Not perfect like that one, but it's okay. You know, in this case, you need to have just the shape, apply the shapes. Doesn't matter, they shouldn't be perfect, not at all. Even some part of it should be melt, I mean, bleed to each other. I mean, you know, like this. And again, more red. Sometimes you can just spatter all over the painting like this, but remember, you need to fade them out. Not all of the dots, but some part of it should be connect to the background. Again, I'm using light green for leaves, but again, I'm using the whole body of my brush like this, and the lines, dots, in random shapes. Okay, when I'm done with it, I use the darker green, again, in different places. Like this, again, lines, dots. And I want to have whole grass at the bottom. It could be even darker. Oh, too much color. It's okay. You can wash them out or just blend it to the background all around. Or very easy, you can wash it out like this. When it's still wet, you can do whatever you want to do. Okay, and then let it dry. Let me just dry it with hair dryer. Okay, it's dry. You can, go back, add few dark colors to it, but not now because I want to show you the technique. You don't need to apply. You can wet the paper and apply the next color. But the technique, again, the same thing. I'm just, the same thing. I do flowers, but without lifting up my hand from the paper. Okay, I start with the center of the flower here. It doesn't matter. You can start from anywhere in your composition. Okay, I just do the shapes, do the petals. I don't go over the colors. I just do my thing. I'm not doing following the way that the colors apply. As you see, I don't have any color here, but I just did my petal here. And we are not supposed to lift up our pen from the paper. Okay, then you get the composition with the pen. Actually, the pen is supposed to be a dry, not soluble one. If it wasn't soluble, that gets wet like this, you could see almost the same thing happen in both sides. Slightly different because you saw we had pen first and then color, or you can have colors then use pen. Even you can go step forward to make the texture like in the center of the flowers, make them hatched lines, or have dark shapes somewhere to exaggerate the shape of them. You can develop this kind of technique in ways that you like. But I just gave you some hint how you can do it in two ways. Is it clear enough? I hope you got the point. Oh, okay. The pen that I'm using, I thought it's kind of not soluble pen, regular pen, but not soluble. But obviously it is. But you can use Sharpie. Let me just show you. Not very expensive Sharpie. This kind of Sharpies. They have, actually I don't have black. but you know, they have fine point. So they are good. Any kind of Sharpies. Maybe I had to use this one. Yeah, Sharpie with a very tiny little tip. Yeah, this one would be good. Yeah, Sharpie. Let's see, it's not water soluble. Yeah, this one is good. Yeah, it's okay. It's not water soluble. Even black pen, I believe black pen works perfect here. You know, because it's not my style. I don't like to do use this technique. So rarely I use it. I mean, I remember maybe twice. I just used it not for very real and serious painting. I just use it for just having fun, practice or something. Yeah, that's it. Okay. We have something else. I mean, another thing. Actually, there are lots of things that I can tell you. But for today, I just want to know about one thing. I mean, just another one thing, which is using a straw. Maybe you are familiar with it. But okay, let's do straw. And then we can call it a day. Oh. Okay. Okay. So for using a straw, again, actually, you can have this technique is used mostly wet and dry because you want to have the texture of straw. That's why partly it could be wet and wet, but the rest have to be wet and dry. Okay, let's start with doing things. Again, I'm using leftover here. Adding colors, consistency of tea, and I wetted the paper. I mean, not hold the paper, but I just spray like random places. And another color, the next one. Okay. You can of course you can add darker value later. Let's just use this. And then you have to blow through a straw. And you have to have direction to the lines that you want to create. But this one, because it's random thing, I mean, we didn't have any plan, we didn't have any composition. So I just blew it in random directions, okay? You need to be very strong because I cannot breathe right now. And yes, of course, you can make it, wet again and apply the same color or different colors, doesn't matter. The same color here and there. And then blow it away. Or darker color to your composition. And again, blow it away. You know, it's another kind of having background. And of course, you will get the different random shapes. And again, you can shape the flowers you create here. Let me just make it very quick. And also you can have the abstract painting. I mean, it shouldn't be necessarily like flowers. I don't touch this part because I want it to be perspective and blend it to the background. And I'm going to use dark green for shaping some part of the flower. I don't do the whole thing, you know. See, when it's wet, when you blow it, it blends to the rest of the color. But when it's you have the dry area, you will get those lines. Of course, you can dry it and then apply more color and then blow it away in a dry dry part of the paper. Okay. Let's yeah, and then if you want to have the shapes, again, you can go to make it negative shaping. For example, I want to color inside those lines, but I'm not touching the lines because I want to have the shape of them. I'm not saying you have to do it, but this is another way that you can develop your negative painting by adding few things all around it. They could be darker, they could be lighter. Even you can add few lines in your texture when it's still wet. Then you get those lines very blended in the background because obviously the paper is wet, so then you get those hatches like this. This is another way that you can have the background, I mean, different kind of background. Let's see if we can pull it away. No, still it's wet, so you don't get the perfect lines like that we had over there. But it's okay, you can just make same lines with positive shapes. And also, you can add a low dark thing to this one to make it a small flower over there. And of course, with negative painting, it pops out. You have the one leaf over it, or you can just with lifting up technique, eliminate that leaf and add a petal to your flower. Now, of course, it's not perfect flower, but you know, the goal wasn't to have flowers here. It's for tomorrow. But I talked about the how to say this kind of technique. You know, if you want to have hatches, of course you can change the direction of the paper and just apply very wet color maybe over here and then blow it away in different direction, you know. Then you will get the hatches, like a lot of, you know, you can use just blowing colors into each other to have just something like this. I mean, when you have a lot of different directions, those line, you will get the abstract shapes of something. Let's just apply another maybe color over here and then blow it away. Different directions. It looks like spider and the web, but it's fine. You know, it's a kind of abstract shapes. Yep. Positive shapes. You can create the texture. And you can think about the certain composition and then think about the way that they went. So apply the color and blow it away in a direction that you want, that you like to have them. Yep, that's it. I guess we can call it a day because we cover whole things, not whole things, because there are lots more than these techniques that I told you. Besides, you can be creative and use any kind of things that you think. Okay, let me just show you when it's still kind of damp. I'm going to show you how you can with credit. I just cut it. I mean, the credit card. You can just remove, oh, it's not wet enough. Okay, look at this part. It's wet. So you can just remove the color in different directions. Okay, try to make it in different directions. And then you can go back for fill the gaps between those lines and create the shape of the rocks and sands. You know, with negative meaning, you can just exaggerate, makes things pop out like this. Okay, yep, done.
Thank you so much. We had fun.
Oh, thank you. Me too.
And I'm blowing that straw. I love it.
Yeah, but trust me, you need to be very strong because I feel dizziness. I just blow it. Your lungs should be very strong. Yeah, but it's fine, as I said. And thank you.
Thank you so much. It was fun. Yeah, I learned a lot.
Oh, good. Thank you. I'm happy to hear that.
Thank you very much.
Oh, you're very welcome. And you can send me your tries, any kind of these techniques